New at 10, it's been 5 days since the hearing involving Adams County Judge Robert Adrian concluded. Now there's an indefinite wait to find out what, if anything, will happen. The hearings come in the midst of Adrian reversing his own guilty verdict in a sexual assault case almost 2 years ago. WGEM's Dylan Smith has been talking with some of those who were there. And Dylan, what happens now?
Well, Daniel, if the Courts Commission sustains the Illinois Judicial Inquiry Board's complaint, there could be sanctions against Adrian, and that includes removal. 18-year-old Cameron Vaughn, who says she was sexually assaulted by then 18-year-old Drew Clinton, says she never thought her case would make it this far.
It's been exactly 1 week.
He does not deserve to hold that power, to have that power over people.
1 week since 18-year-old Cameron Vaughn boarded the train to Chicago, hoping to end this chapter of her life. The Judicial Inquiry Board's complaint was first filed last June, 5 months after Judge Robert Adrian overturned his guilty verdict against then 18-year-old Drew Clinton. Vaughn, who's now back home in Joplin, Missouri, says she wants the hearings to result in Adrian's removal from the bench.
We had no idea it was going to blow up the way it did. We were really expecting it to maybe get to St. Louis, and within a couple of days it had reached everywhere.
Quinata CEO Megan Dusterhouse was also in Chicago for the hearings. She says when she first learned of Adrian's reversal, she was outraged.
It was good to sort of see that process and play out, and to have, know that there is some mechanism in place where we can take concerns about judges to a higher level.
The complaint charges Adrian with willful misconduct in office, conduct that is, quote, prejudicial to the administration of justice, and conduct that brings the judicial office into disrepute. Adrian declined to go on camera, but in his own interview said that he stands by his reversal. Quoting the Bible, Adrian said that God requires 3 things of his people: to do justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with him, which Adrian says he'll continue to do. There's no timeline for when the Illinois Court Commission's decision will happen, but Dusterhouse says this case speaks volumes to all survivors.
I think survivors need to know, and they need to be reassured that this is not the kind of treatment that they should expect from the criminal justice system when they come forward and make a report of sexual assault.
And in addition to Adrian overturning the verdict, the complaint includes violations of Adrian retaliating against a prosecutor for agreeing with critical comments about him. Another violation charges Adrian with providing false testimony to the Judicial Inquiry Board. Daniel?
All right, thank you, Dylan. And Vaughn's allegations against Clinton stem from a graduation party. In May of 2021, Adrian says he overturned the verdict because of evidence he hopes the case is